when a hysterical crowd goes wild, interfering with the police as they try to do their duty, when people spit at the police, shout obscenities right in their faces, and even try to run them over with cars while they're performing their official duties. And the police, as you understand, have weapons, so they draw them, they fire them, and when they fire, sometimes they hit someone, and another cross appears in the cemetery. Or maybe a crescent, depending, or to use the words of Karl Marx and Clara Zetkin.
This is breaking news with shocking new details tonight about the fatal shooting of a Veterans Hospital nurse in Minneapolis. Tonight, ABC News got a preliminary Department of Homeland Security report on when Aleks Priddy was shot. The report, just sent to Congress, shows that not one but two federal agents opened fire on Aleks Priddy, 10 shots in a matter of seconds. The report states that the MVB conducted, quote, a preliminary analysis of body camera footage from some of the agents.
That's what you would have seen in the 20-second video I just showed you. People in civilian clothes grabbed onto a police officer, and it took two more officers and pepper spray to pull them off. Would you interfere with the police arresting someone who just committed a murder? Not right this second, but recently. And you shield him with your bodies, not letting them arrest him. So you automatically become an accomplice to his crimes. You're trying to take him away from the police.
And about what President Trump said just a few minutes ago about the death of this nurse from gunfire. Matt Rivers from ABC begins our report from Minneapolis today, Minneapolis.
Look at what's happening. On the other hand, there's a man being detained, not even arrested yet, but subdued, because he's interfering with the police as they carry out their duties. Congress has requested the footage from the police body cameras.
The report states that when the agents tried to take him into custody, a struggle broke out. And I quote, "He has a gun," shouted the Border Patrol agent several times. According to the data, about 5 seconds later, the Border Patrol agent fired his Glock 19.
One of the attackers had a gun, and two police officers opened fire on him.
The DGB report never states that Priddy reached for his weapon, nor does its timeline mention him being disarmed before he was shot.
That report was from ABC. Well, journalists who hate Trump and therefore hate everyone on his side, people like us, they cover the situation as if during a clash or a fight you can make instant decisions with a cool head. But the police officers are being attacked. People are rushing at them. Women are screaming. They rehearsed. They're well-trained. The police officers are being pushed, obstructed, blocked from moving forward. Attacks on the federal police are encouraged by the Democratic Party, which is in power in Minneapolis. And the supposedly spontaneous crowd is actually well paid, and they know for sure they'll get off. Well, they'll avoid punishment. All these riots, lawyers, equipment, and training are paid for by Neville Royce Singham, supposedly out of his own money. But he has been living in China for many years, and his connections with Chinese so-called organizations are undeniable. Funding for pro-Palestinian riots in the United States also comes from China through Singham, as well as for unrest in Los Angeles. For example, money that arrived in Los Angeles has already been traced. He is a Muslim who made serious big money on software products. He is a communist who actually connects China with Islamists from the Middle East. There has been no trial against him. There is no court decision yet, so it cannot be said that his guilt has been proven. But a lot of evidence points to him as Code Pink. That is, well, Pink Code. He receives money from Neville, and the People's Front is a New York organization. It also receives many streams of funding from him, going through S-funds, intermediaries. Anti-Israeli, let's say, demonstrations and beatings of Jews at universities were financed by the same Singham, and his money pays for hired agitators who come to universities and, pretending to be students, start fights, arson, and break into classrooms. Naturally, Singham's people deny any connection with Chinese intelligence and claim that they are simply fighting against Singham's imperialism. Well, China, of course, is acting under his cover, so to speak. It also operates in India, South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, and the United Kingdom. It's very convenient for them to do this through an American citizen. According to unverified reports, anti-Israeli movements within Israel itself are also being funded by the Chinese Communist Party through the same Singam. So what was Aleks Preddy doing on a cold winter day at the place where police from the Federal Department of Immigration surrounded the location where someone or maybe several people were hiding? We don't know exactly how many. Criminals. It's not so easy to say. Nice and good people who cross the border, that's also a crime, yes. But at that moment, they weren't targeting those who just crossed the border, but those who committed crimes on the territory of the United States of America. So Aleks went there along with others like him to interfere to prevent the arrest of these, well, to put it mildly, murderous bandits. I don't know what else you would call them. How did he find out that the police came to that particular place? China and the Democratic Party of the United States organized surveillance of the movements of the Immigration Department's vehicles. And as soon as the police go out to make an arrest, the fighters on the territory encounter, let's say, groups consisting of lesbians and transgender people. Just hired activists rush to the scene and get into a fight.
It looks like a situation where someone arrived at the scene to cause maximum harm to civilians and kill law enforcement officers. To be continued.
President Trump questioned if Aleks Preddy's shooting was justified.
Well, you know, we're conducting a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'll be following it. I want a very honest and proper investigation. I need to see it for myself.
Unlike Obama, who, in the case of the arrest of a black activist, immediately, without looking into it, said that the racist police officer was to blame, Trump said, "Gentlemen, I need to look into it myself." Obama immediately demanded the dismissal and punishment of the police officer, but then it turned out that the officer was not racist at all, and that he was 100% right in what he did. Obama played out the situation and arranged what he called a friendly meeting at the White House, which was called the Beer Summit, meaning, well, a beer meeting, so to speak, right? Where? Doing his best to perform for the cameras, Obama talked about how much he loves our police.
President Obama and Vice President Biden yesterday hosted two key figures who found themselves at the center of the nationwide discussion about racial profiling: Harvard University professor Henry Gates and Cambridge Police Sergeant James Crowley. These two men spent about 40 minutes at a White House table talking over beer.
Everyone saw the press. Is it clear to you why this was done? Well, as they used to say in the movie world, it was just for show, obviously. Even a hedgehog would get it. Though honestly, I have no idea why a hedgehog, but if even a hedgehog gets it, then everyone should understand. So ABC was saying, "What a wonderful Obama." That very ABC what? He didn't figure it out and immediately started berating the police officer, and then rushed off to fix his own nastiness. And at the same time, what a bad Trump, that he didn't immediately blame the police officer, but said that you need to figure things out first before accusing anyone. Who is this person who was killed, who went to stop the arrest? A murderer who took a gun from home, took a gun with him, who rushed to physically interfere with the police carrying out their duties, and, as I already said, is making excuses for murderers and criminals. He is presented as a nurse from Minneapolis. Well, he is probably a nurse from Minneapolis. And they hang up this photo of a nice, smiling person. They included the murdered man's sister.
Aleks Preddy's sister called her brother a hero and harshly condemned Aleks's lies.
It would be strange if the sister, who I suspect also hates me, you, and all conservatives would say anything bad about her brother. And as for herself, I suspect she's the same way. She attacks the police and scratches their faces. But the problem is, a video surfaced with this very same Alexei about 10 to 12 days. The same Alexei, the same cold outside, the same hatred, the same desire to injure, destroy, attack. knowing that nothing will happen to him for this, that he'll get off. You know, the ones who pay for all of this. By the way, I think he was an unhappy, lonely person who wasn't needed by anyone.
New footage shows Aleks pretty 11 days before he was fatally shot by Border Patrol officers in Minneapolis on January 24.
Aleks, a sweet, wonderful hero, spits out the window of a police car. He's agitated. He can't stand still. He needs to let out his hatred, and he does.
In the video recorded on January 13, Pretty is seen shouting a curse and spitting at a federal immigration agent's car during a protest. Then he kicks the agent's car, breaking the rear taillight.
He's not himself. He's definitely, by the way, under some kind of, I don't know, I think drugs when he breaks the headlight. Well, who in their right mind would kick a police car and break the headlight? That's just unbelievable. Yes, you have to be in a state where, an excited state is either internal or acquired. And if it's acquired, then obviously it's acquired by something. So naturally, the police officer jumps out of the car. Well, that time he was lucky, so to speak. He wasn't killed, just beaten.
The agents get out of the car and a scuffle breaks out. Pretty loses his coat on the ground, and when he gets up again, something that looks like a gun can be seen tucked into his belt.
By the way, he brought the gun there himself, knowing there would be clashes with the police. By the way, he tucked the gun into his belt, first spat, then in a rage kicked the car, and then, was he just lucky that time? They didn't notice the gun and didn't break his nose or his rib. They just put him down, put him on the ground. Well, they roughed him up a bit and left. Naturally, the parents and actually the family of that dirty scoundrel named George Floyd immediately wanted money. Immediately, a group of lawyers swooped in. Just like flies on crap, everyone is crying, but everyone smells profit.
The parents' lawyer, Pretty, said the January 13 conflict did not justify the officers fatally shooting Pretty on the 24th. The Internal Security Investigation Department is reviewing new videos and the incident. It is unknown whether the officers involved in the altercation on the 13th were also present when Pretty was killed.
Let's think about it. 20,000 immigration officers are catching criminals who entered the United States without a visa and without our permission to be in our country. There are branches of this department in all 50 states. But for some reason, there are clashes, shootings, and everything else there. Everything happens only in a state with Democratic leadership. And right now, the Democratic leadership of that state is under investigation regarding multi-billion theft, from which anywhere from 9 billion to, well, some even say up to 19 billion was taken from the state treasury. No riots occur in Republican states, but most Democratic states have riots, except where theft and fraud were found. And if there are any, they're almost unnoticeable. Well, let's do what investigators do. Let's try to set aside emotion and look at it frame by frame, moment by moment.
So when it moves like that, you can't see all the elements. Chunkiel Folge. Als wir jetzt Stoppuhr kann. Snapshot. We can say this is low video quality, or it's some kind of visual artifact, or poorly projected pixels. Or it seems like the gun is cocked, and you can see part of the barrel. Maybe we can model this frame and compare it with the photo of the confiscated gun published by the Ministry of Justice, right? It looks like the slide is pulled back, and you can see the inside of the barrel. And when he suddenly turns the weapon, reaching the peak of this movement, the slide seems to move forward. This visual clue number 1 is the first piece of evidence. And here's the second element. It's incredibly fast and it seems to be visible in only one frame. That's why I didn't notice it right away. It almost seems like a small puff of smoke appears at the moment when the pistol is thrown back. Now you'll notice that it's barely visible. And again, it's hard to say whether this isn't just, well, some kind of low-quality video artifact, but between these two frames in the video here. When the pistol barely crosses his leg, it seems to jump up about an inch or two, and it looks like some kind of gray substance coming out of the barrel. Maybe I could quickly throw this into Photoshop and, play around with the colors and contrast a bit to make it a little clearer. When I increase the contrast, it instantly becomes visible. It really looks like smoke is coming out of the barrel. I can't say for sure that's what it is, but it definitely looks like it. Also, that's not the only factor. Next, we need to focus on this object on the ground. It looks like it might be a baseball cap or some kind of black cloth. That could be Alex's hat. If I'm not mistaken, when the smoke appears, the hat flies into the air. Some people suggest that it's the officer's foot touching the hat and making it move like that. But if you look at the frame, I'm not sure that's the case. I don't know if he's stepping on it, and it's hard to say whether he could, by barely touching it with his foot, or let's say pressing and pushing off with his foot, make the fabric from the top of the hat jump up into the air. So, the question is whether this is a bullet mark, possibly from a shot fired at him, or very close by. I don't know, guys. Originally when I was watching, I was expecting a hit on the concrete, maybe some dust rising, although, there probably wouldn't be that much dust from a 9mm bullet hitting concrete, especially frozen concrete, which I suppose is much harder. But overall, I want to say, it's a plausible theory. And now the question is, were the officers involved in this encounter and situation aware? Was the crime scene preserved? Where is that hat? Is there a bullet hole in that hat? Did the bullet actually hit the hat directly? Are there any bullet marks on the concrete? Specifically in that particular case, what can the officer who has Aleks Petty's gun in his hand tell us? And certainly, these are extremely important questions that need to be asked before coming to any conclusions. That's exactly why conducting an investigation is so important. You shouldn't jump to political conclusions or make wild claims, like saying someone was executed for political reasons or was unarmed, and that others knew it, and that they just shot him in the back for no reason at all. If you instantly make such conclusions, you're clearly being dishonest. Your opinion, frankly, I think, should be immediately dismissed. What you're trying to do is use a confusing situation to propagandize people.
The gun was taken actually for what? To just hang around? No, gentlemen, to shoot. Well, that's the story. A frenzied crowd chased the police during their raid to arrest dangerous criminals. I repeat, dangerous criminals. The situation is tense. The crowd is attacking the police, throwing frozen bottles and chunks of ice at them, jeering, whistling, interfering, constantly trying to run into them or hit them. There's a scuffle. Someone, seeing a gun on our hero anti-hero, shouts, "He has a weapon!" Two police officers immediately draw their pistols, and now it's about protecting their lives. There's a man with a weapon in front of them. I actually have a question. Who is to blame? I'll give you a few options, like they do in universities these days. Guess which one is correct. First, who's to blame? The federal police, who came to enforce United States law. Or the second option, the Democratic Party leadership, who created an atmosphere of harassment and interfered with the police carrying out their duties, including those who paid the agitators. Maybe they're to blame. Third, maybe it's the police who weren't being shot at, but they fired and killed. Fourth, those who, having succumbed to propaganda and brainwashing, went into a frenzy are to blame. And, well, as the agitators called on them to do, they used their bodies to shield the killers whom the police came to arrest. The fifth option, or maybe it's the corrupt and vile press that's to blame, which lies, deceives, misleads, and then, after catching its breath, deliberately misinforms, with one goal, to make money for themselves, for a trip to Italy or to Bermuda, to buy a Rolex since they can't get to the golden one, and to smoke very expensive cigars. People are dying. First, a lesbian trying to run over a police officer. Now this maniac constantly bringing weapons into conflict situations. And also think about who benefits from this. who really wants as many maniacs as possible to die. That's where we'll end for today, ladies and gentlemen. But there's a small announcement. Below, there's a link to my book. It's a kind of semi-fantastic adventure story. But, well, it's free. The book is free, but it describes everything that's happening to us today. Right now, you can download it absolutely for free. It's found by searching for Q. It was originally written in English, translated into Russian, and this is the Russian version. Well-known people whom you likely know reviewed it positively. Giuliani, Sarah Park. She wrote me a very nice review about it. Marcia Blackguard. She's a United States senator, and many other politicians and journalists. A critic from London, from the London Review, wrote that he felt the flavor of 1984 and Animal Farm. I hope you know whose books those are. I was very flattered. Let's put it this way, it's free here. With us on Amazon, in electronic form, it's, I think, $4.99, I think, but here it's free. That's where we finish, and until next time, when some very interesting and important events happen for us, I will definitely come out to meet you one more time. Goodbye.